So for today, we're going to be looking at two types of functions. One of them, we call it vertex function. Vertex function is basically like this. You guys see the parentheses. That's vertex function. The other way we're going to call it is standard form. You see that there's no parentheses. So I'm going to be working with those two types of functions, the vertex form, the standard form. Now, 43 to 50, questions 43 to 50, what I'm asking here on the notes is identify the vertex and the aperture of each function. So what we do with this type of function, we call this quadratic functions, both of them. They end up looking like a U shape. It's either the U is open down or open up. And so they end up looking like a U shape. When it is open up, my vertex is the lowest point on the graph. When it is open down, my vertex is the highest point of the graph. So here, what I'm going to do, we call this vertex form because the way we're going to find the vertex, if I ask you guys identify the vertex, I'm asking vertex and aperture, but for right now, let me just look at the vertex. The vertex, but it will be the points forward, the coordinates forward, -3. Want you guys to look inside the parentheses. That's going to give me my x value. But do notice I switched the sign. Inside the x value, there was a -4 or a -4. But on my vertex, I said +4. My y value, it will be this number at the very end with the sign included. So my vertex is 4, -3. If I ask you for the aperture, we're going to pay attention to the very first number. And I'm just going to look at the sign. If it is positive, it opens up. If it's negative, it opens down. In this case, I'm going to say this thing, it opens down. So I have an idea. My graph will look something like this. Right? I can plot the point for -3. So it will be somewhere around here. This is 4 on the x. Let's say this is -3 on the y. There's my vertex and it opens down. Can easily graph it. We're going to talk about graphing in a minute. Let's take a look at number 44. First thing, the vertex. My vertex is going to be -1, -1. Again, the x value comes from inside the parentheses, opposite sign. So I'm going to say this is my x value. As a matter of fact, let me call it -x. So that's my x value, opposite sign. This number at the very end, that's my y value with the sign included. Now, if it opens up or down, I look at the very first number. I'm really interested in just the sign. It's a -1 or a negative number. Therefore, it opens down. This is what we call a vertex form. You can see the vertex is easy to find. Question number 45. I'm going to say my vertex is going to be +4 for the x and 1 for the y. My vertex is 4, 1. And it opens up. The very first number, the one outside of the parentheses, the very first one, it's a positive number, right? +2 in this case, but I'm just looking at the sign. It opens up. And lastly, on vertex form, I'm going to say my vertex is 4, -3. And it opens up. Right? It opens up because the number before the parentheses, I'm looking at here. I'm really looking at the sign. It's a positive sign. So it opens up. So if I give it to you in vertex form, you should be able to find it easily. Right? Vertex form, remember, inside of the parentheses, we have the x value, opposite sign. At the very end, we have the y value with the sign included. Now, if it opens up or down, we can see that at the very, very beginning. Right? I'm just looking at the sign. So vertex form is easy. Now, looking at questions 47 through 50, when I give it to you in this form. Now, what we're going to do, standard form, what we're going to do, let me find the X value. I'm going to look for my vertex first. And I'm going to say my X value. This one's going to require a little bit more work. My X value, my vertex, let me call this negative B over 2A. I know for quadratic formula, we talk about how to get the A, the B, and the C. We said that A, my question here it is, A is a -1. My B is a -6. And my C is a -10, right? We talked about that yesterday when we talk about quadratic formula. So the X value of my vertex is negative B over 2A. So let's take a look. B is -6. So the negative of a negative is going to give me on the top +6. At the bottom, I have to go 2 times A. A is -1. So 2 times -1 gives me a -2. Positive divided by negative is negative. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my X value, let me emphasize, just the X value of my vertex is -3. For my Y value, I'm going to use the equation that was given originally, and I'm going to use -3 for X. What I mean with that is I have a negative sign, and then I have a X squared, so -3 squared, -6. Let me put inside parentheses a -3, and then a -10. The very beginning, I have a negative sign. -3 squared, that's 9. Then I have a negative sign. 6 times a -3, that's a -18. Then I have a negative sign, and there's a 10. When I see two signs together, two negative signs together, that makes it a plus sign. So let me change this to a plus sign. So I have -9 plus 18 minus 10. That happens to give me -1. So I know the X value and I know the Y value of my vertex. So my vertex will be -3, -1. Now for the aperture, right? Because on the instructions here for the notes, it says vertex and aperture. For the aperture, I still look at the very first number. The very, very first sign. It's a negative sign, so it opens down. The aperture is not too hard to find out. It's just the vertex what gives us a little bit of hard time. All right, let's take a look at number 48. I know my A is a -1, my B is a -6, and my C is a -5. And I know the X value of my vertex is -B over 2A. B is -6, so the negative of a negative gives me +6. 2 times A, I know A is -1. 2 times A is a -2. 6 divided by -2 is -3. That's my X value. For my Y value, I'm going to have, there's a negative sign, -3 squared minus 6 times a -3 minus 5. So there's a negative sign. -3 squared is 9 minus a -18 minus 5. Two negative signs make a plus sign. So I have -9 plus 18 minus 5. That gives me 4. So I'm going to say my vertex, -3, 4. My aperture, looking at the very, very first sign, it opens down. So if I had to graph this, I have an idea where my vertex is, and it opens down. All right, let's take a look at a couple more examples. My A value is 2. My B value is -4. And my C value is 6. And I know my X coordinate, my X value on the vertex, formula -B over 2A. So I have +4 over 4, which is 1. Now for the y value, I have 2 times 1 squared minus 4 times 1 plus 6. That's basically 2 minus 4 plus 6. Right? 2 minus 4 plus 6 is 4. So my y value is 4. So my vertex is 1, 4. And this one, I'm going to say it opens up. Look at the first number. Look at the sign. The very, very first number. Positive. So it opens up. All right. Let's take a look at question 50. I'm not going to label A, B, C, but we can tell A is 2, B is 8, and C is 10. Now remember, for my X value, I have to go negative B over 2A. So let me go negative 8 over 4. That gives me negative 2. For my Y value, I'm going to go 2 times 2 squared plus 8 times 2 plus 10. Well, on the very first thing, I have to do the square first. So 2 squared is 4 times the 2, it's 8. Plus 16, right? 8 times 2 plus 10. That happens to give me, right, 8 plus 16. I forgot my negative signs, actually, so that changes a little. This is minus 16. 8 minus 16 plus 10. That happens to give me, what, 2? So my vertex, negative 2, 2. My aperture, it opens up. The very first number is positive, so it opens up. Let me go back in a little bit. So 43 to 46, vertex form. It's easy to find the vertex. Easy to find the aperture. 47 through 50, you kind of have to work a little bit for the vertex. Here in the notes, I'm asking for both. Identify the vertex and the aperture. For your homework and the quiz, I'm going to be specific. Some questions, I'm just interested in the vertex. Just give me the vertex. And some questions, I'm just interested in the aperture. So I said, make sure you read the instructions. The homework, I'm going to ask you only for the vertex or only for the aperture, not both. On the notes, I did both, but on the homework and the quiz, I'll be specific. Make sure when you guys type in your vertex, make sure you guys type in parentheses, make sure there's the comma in between your numbers, and make sure you have a space after the comma. Okay. Now let's go into graphing these, right? This is going to be online. The homework is going to be online. So you guys are going to have multiple choice for this graph. But if it was on paper, I will be just grading the vertex and the aperture. So the way I graph this is I see it is given in vertex form. I see the parentheses. At the side, let me identify the vertex. The vertex is 1, negative 4. Remember the X values inside parentheses, opposite sign. And then the Y value, you guys see the negative 4 at the end. And I know this thing, it opens down because of the negative 2 at the very beginning, right? It's a negative number. So I know the vertex and it opens down. Vertex is 1, negative 4. I can plot the point. And my graph opens down. Now, if this was on paper, I'm just grading the vertex and the aperture. So as long as you guys are showing that it's opening down, I'll be okay with it. Now, one of you comes over and says, all right, Sir Leonzo, what if I go like this? I open it too much. I will say you're funny, yet you're still correct. Because I'm just grading the vertex and the aperture. Just want you guys to be able to find the vertex and it opens up or down. All right, let's take a look at the next example. My vertex, let me on the side, let me identify the vertex is negative 3, negative 4. And I'm going to say this one opens up, right? The positive 2 at the beginning, positive numbered, it says it opens up. So my -3, -4, I can easily plot the point. And it opens up. Once again, I'm just interested when you are identifying the vertex and identifying whether it opens up or down. So on paper, this will be correct. Just give me the vertex and opens up or down. Let's take a look at 53. My vertex, -3, +3. And this one opens up. Remember, my x value comes from here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to call it -x. There's my x value with the opposite sign. And there's my y value. So you guys can see where I got my vertex. And my for opening up, I see the very, very front. Positive sign, so it opens up. So -3, 3. That is right there. We can plot the point, -3, 3. And it opens up. There we go. Last one, number 54, vertex. Vertex is 2, -3. And this one opens down. So I'm going to go 2, -3 is right there. And it opens down. So that will be okay. That will be sufficient. In this case, I just want you to be able to identify the vertex and whether it opens up or down. Now, when it comes to this form, standard form, online, I'm going to give it to you as a multiple choice. When it comes to on paper, I will say, all right, you have to identify the vertex and the intercepts. I'll talk about the intercepts right now. So let me identify the vertex. And I know my A is a -1, my B is a -4, and my C is 0. I don't see it. So I'm just going to say for my X value, I know I have to go -B over 2A. So I have 4 over -2. That's -2. For my Y value, there's a negative in front of it, and I'm going -2 squared minus 4 times a -2. So -4 plus 8, which is better known as 4. So my vertex, -2, 4. All right, I can easily plot that point. -2, 4 is right there. Now, my intercept. I know we talk about factoring, we talk about solving, we talk about factoring, we talk about completing the square, we talk about quadratic formula. Let me do this graphing wise. -x squared, so I'm looking at -x squared minus 4x. I can remove a negative and I can remove an x. So it's going to give me x minus 4. If I let each of my factors equal to 0, the first one's going to tell me x equals 0, and the other one's going to tell me x equals 4. Now, the values of these intercepts, the values of these is on the x-axis. Let me mark 0. It's right there. And let me mark, actually, was just supposed to factor an x. And then I do this. Let me see, factor a -x, so it gives me, I cannot factor just a negative. But the thing is that gives me x squared plus 4x. Now here, I will just factor the x and then x plus 4. So I get that x is equal to 0 and x equals -4. So 0 and -4. Right. Keep in mind here, -x squared, the negative has nothing to do with the x squared. That's why I removed the negative first. All right, so my values 0, -4, that's where I'm going to cross the x-axis. Now I have a very good idea of how this graph goes. Now, for this other question, let me find out my vertex. My x value of my vertex is positive 18 over negative 6. Because remember, it's negative b over 2a. That gives me negative 3. Okay, so I know my x value. For my y value, I'm going to use that equation. Negative 3 times a negative 3 squared minus 18 times a negative 3 minus 24. So that gives me negative 27 plus, right, 18 times 3. Use a calculator if you need to. 54 minus 24. And all this is 3. So my vertex is negative 3, 3. It's right there. All right, now factor. Factored in order for us to be able to find the intercepts. What I'm going to do, I'm going to divide everything by negative 3 first. So that gives me x squared plus 6x plus 8. I'm looking at the negative 3 by itself. Then I'm going to break this into 2 parentheses. I'm going to do x plus 2 and x plus 4. The plus 2 plus 4, because I was looking for two numbers that multiplied equals 8 and then added equals 6. All right, if I let each of my parentheses equal to 0, I get x is equal to negative 2 and it is equal to negative 4. If factoring is not your thing, use quadratic formula. We learned quadratic formula. So I'm going to be crossing this graph at negative 2 and a negative 4. So it's a little close. You guys are lucky that it's a multiple choice online. Because I guess in this one, as long as you know the vertex and the aperture, you're good. On paper, I will be grading the vertex and the intercepts. All right, let's take a look at number 57. Let me get the vertex first. The x value, I'm going to say positive 16th over 4, which is 4. Remember, negative b over 2a. For my y value, I'm going to go 2 times 4 squared minus 16 times 4 plus 30. I know 4 squared times 2, so 4, because I have to do exponents first. That's 32. 16 times 4 is 64 plus 30. 32 minus 64 plus 30 is a negative 2. So my vertex is for negative 2. I can graph that. It's right there. My intercepts, I'm going to factor. Let me factor the 2 first. So that's going to give me x squared minus 8x plus 15. So there's the 2 in the front, and I'm going to break the parentheses into 2 of them. And this is going to, I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiplied equals 15, added equals negative 8. I'm going to call this x minus 3, x minus 5. If x minus 3 equals to 0, x equals 3. If x minus 5 equals to 0, x equals 5. Like I said, factoring is not your thing. Use quadratic formula. My intercepts are 3 and 5. And lastly, let's take a look at number 58. My x value for my vertex, negative b over 2a. So 6 over negative 2, which is negative 3. For my y value, there's a negative and then negative 3 squared. Minus 6 times a negative 3 minus 8. So I have negative 9 plus 18 minus 8, which is 1. So my vertex is negative 3, 1. Boom, it's right there. For my intercepts, Let me factor the negative sign first. X squared plus 6x plus 8. My parentheses, let me factor it into two of them. I'm going to get x plus 2, x plus 4. Remember, I was looking for two numbers that multiplied equals 4, added equals 6. If x plus 2 equals 0, I get x equals negative 2. If x plus 4 equals 0, I get x equals negative 4. If you do this using the quadratic formula, you get your two values, negative 2, negative 4. There's a negative 2, there's a negative 4. That is where I cross my x-axis. Let me zoom out. Take a screenshot of your pictures, of the notes. Take a screenshot